I decided to try putting the fuel tank on top of the IBC tote on the trailer. Give it some elevation. I don't think it's added any more fuel to the fuel filter, but it's still running. So now it should almost technically be easier for it to pump out, but we'll see. I may bring it back to the bench because I mean, really, I haven't really seen a difference there. Maybe just a slight little uptick on the vacuum pressure. I know I said pressure, but just vacuum. I tell you what, this is definitely going to be a good little torture test for these sawhorses. Normally they're at Harbor Freight, $13.99. They had a little extended parking lot coupon, brought them down to $10.99 each. Definitely well worth it during the building process, and I guess you can call this benchmarking. But yeah, I don't see any oil leaks, none from the filter, none from the drain hose. I don't smell any fuel leaks from the new pump adding on. There's definitely no leaks on the line. So, so far everything's working out, which is good. It's what everyone would hope for. Got a good charge going on the battery. Oh, we'll see. Let me see if I can see the time I got here on the. No, I can't. Oh, we're gonna put it through the 3-hour break-in pace, and then go ahead and drain it out and refill it, refilter it, and then start finishing the building process of getting this pressure washer all together. Still need to figure out where on this trailer I'm gonna place it. It might be in the back, just based off how big these tanks are. This is a slow-mo surfactant, the 5 gallons from I think it's Power Wash Products, Pressure Wash Products, PWP. They're the only ones that carry it, so we'll see how that turns out once we get all the stop washing stuff going. Something I'm just noticing now, that little elbow for the oil drain plug, that's about as tight as it's gonna get. It's already up against the little O-ring, but you know what, it's gonna come up into contact with that belt housing once I get it on. It's not actually turning that slow, it's just the shutter rate of the camera. Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out once we get there. Like I said, drains at hose is probably the best option to do. And then you could probably get a coupler and a barb, and I mean really any kind of hose. And then just do another barb on the bottom and put a cap. And that way you have a drains it hose that it's extended to where you need it. But we'll see what happens. I may end up getting just a drains it hose, get a coupler, connect these two together. We'll see how it goes. So we're about 32 minutes in. Another 28 more and I'll up the RPM. Now the better thing about me having moved the gas tank is now the fuel line's not vibrating on the plastic cover for the oil cooler. As far as heat goes so far, I can feel the heat there, but also it's at the fan from the front blowing it to the back, so it's pushing off the radiating heat. I mean, right there is probably like a warm. That's probably like 2 foot, 2.5, maybe 3 foot, not so much. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure where I'll end up putting it on the trailer, because you gotta watch out for that heat. And as far as the exhaust port here, you still feel it puffing at a foot. Right now it's pretty hot. Warm, hot. Well, hot, hot. right about here, which is about maybe 1.5 feet. Some puffs are getting on you, some are off. About 2 foot, you know, I'm feeling at my wrist, bottom hand, it's moving around, but I'd say it's cool. So, you know, it's still a ways away from here, so you probably want like about 2.5 foot of clearance coming out on this side. I mean, from here, maybe also you probably want like a 2 foot radius around it, just to make sure you're not melting any of the plastics, including that. But yeah, still going strong. I'm gonna show you right now that the amount of fuel in the filter has gone much lower. So I might have to change to the original filter and run it with that. I guess there's too much space in there to keep an adequate amount of fuel going through, because I mean, it's barely even going through that filter. I don't see any air bubbles on the output side like I did earlier, but probably wouldn't recommend such a big filter. Probably something smaller. So we're already past our 1 hour. I upped the RPM a bit. We're at about 2.5 inches of mercury on vacuum for the fuel pump. Somehow still sucking fuel. We'll see how she keeps going. 1 hour and 20, we're still running. I got the earmuffs on. Now that we've increased the RPM some, there's a little bit more fuel in there, but it almost looks like it's running off of vapor. I really don't see any bubbles coming through too often. I think some just popped up. On the top end, can see some going through. Yeah, we'll see if we make it the full 3 hours. We're an hour 20 in, got an hour 40 to go. Okay, last hour just bumped it in, bumped it up all the way. That should be right at 400 RPM. We already took all the wobble and wiggle out of the way. We got out of the way. That last set, wow, survived that. So at whatever RPM that last was that I had it, we had the heat shield being at about 205 degrees, the muffler itself about 408 degrees, and then the output exhaust at about 508 as well. They're at that big. So we'll see in a little while how high in temperature they go full throttle now. Somewhat acceptable fuel fill. I took the lining from on top, put it down. That way all the air bubbles will get out of it. Down. Don't really see the air bubbles coming through as much, if any. So I guess there's just some air bubbles in the line. Still. Now we're pulling at almost 3 inches of mercury. Got a little probe on it, so we'll see how this last hour goes, and then we'll let it cool down, see what the oil level was. Remember, I left it just a little bit high. And, we'll let it cool just a bit more, and we'll do the oil and oil filter change. That'll be the end of our 3-hour braking period. I'll just turn off the fuel supply, let it crank up to flat drop the gas. Again, this is non-ethanol gas. This is 90 octane. Some other stores a little further than where I got this one from, they have 87 octane. It's a little within reason on pricing. It's like 50 cents more than regular 87. This was like a whole $1.30 more per gallon. I have a fresh water bottle up there. It's not touching the oil fluid. I just didn't want the fuel hose to be vibrating and rubbing on the plastic grill over the oil fluid. And at first, it's amazing that brand new and the fins are already so bent. As you see, there's still some air bubbles coming through. I don't know where they're coming. You have the connection below it. You have this connection, that connection. That connection there. You have the bars inserted on the elbow. Gauge. Right into this plastic housing. There could be air coming through. I don't really know. Kind of a little too late to test, because I could have at least, sucked on one end and see if it holds the vacuum. I'll see if this holds the vacuum once I shut it off. If this clears out, and I'll see if the reading goes down any. If it does, it probably is a leak somewhere in the system. We'll see. Another thing that it says on these stickers, it's going to be using regular gas, which I may go to. They say make sure you add additives. If you want that additive to kind of take care of any issues that ethanol will give it. Right here it says you must run 15 to 20 minutes every 3 months and add fuel stabilizer or wood burn. So, for sure use additive in your fuel. Buy a bottle, dose each tank a little bit. I would say that's mainly for the concern of ethanol corroding things on the inside. This being non-ethanol, I'll say allegedly, who knows how true non-ethanol it is. I didn't test it. And all you really need is just pour some out, add some water to it, and see if it separates. Preferably non-ethanol. It does cost more, but if you're going to do with ethanol, just regular gas, throw in a little bit of additive per tank. Tested the charging voltage at full throttle. We're at 14.5 volts for the charging coils we're putting out to the battery. I'm not sure how much of that last part you were able to hear. But I just took some readings. The heat shield is about 280. The muffler is about 4. Don't remember. It didn't really change too much on the muffler. So it's probably like 450. And then the output of the exhaust is about 690 degrees Fahrenheit. It actually melted my little wrap here on the thermometer. Melted the wrap on my thermometer and actually kind of I think charred this little protective layer. But those are the temperatures you're looking at with the 670 exhaust. So 280 from the heat shield all the way to 690 full throttle. It may be even getting hotter, but I was reading about 690 on the output of the exhaust blowing out. Just had a couple of unexpected sputters there from the engine. It's not the fuel, because nothing's changed about the fuel. So I don't know if that was the oil pressure sensor already wanting to give up or what. But now it's back to running the way it is. But I could hear it going, and then it started sputtering. We'll see. Maybe it was the fuel tank. And I put the water bottle to tip it. It's already showing empty, but like I had said earlier, it's about it doesn't start going up until about like 2 gallons in. So there's plenty of fuel in there. It's got weight to it. So I just tilted it so that the pickup tube is covered. I didn't see any air going into the fuel filter, so I didn't think it was a fuel filter. But maybe that was it, maybe not. Only time will tell. After this, I probably won't be turning it on for another week or two while I prep the trailer and figure out its placement. I got carriage bolts to put on the frame because there's no screws holding the boards down on the 4 cross members that are on this trailer. I didn't put this wood, the previous owner did. So I got that to do. Give it a quick little sand. Got some gray paint to paint it over. Might paint underneath. Hopefully try getting out there as soon as possible. Right about here, you can feel the fan wanting to pull your hand in. It does have quite a bit of suction to it. Yeah, right about here you start feeling it. Alright, we're at the end of our 3 hours. So I'm just letting it idle down for a minute and then I'll turn the shut off and let it run out of fuel. Alright, 3 hour runtime done. 1 minute of idle. Shut off the fuel, ran for like another minute or two. Should cut off on their own. Maybe it was just the gas needed to be tilted, but I mean, still feels like there's a gallon or 2 in there. But like I said, even with a gallon or 2, I mean, once it settles out, it's pretty much gonna be empty reading. So we'll let her cool down, do the oil change, and then start working on building it up. I don't know if you could hear me in the other video, but when you at full idle, you stuck your hand right here, you could feel the fan wanting to pull you in, and then right there you could definitely feel it holding your hand in there. Yeah, just didn't want the thing to be vibrating on here and work a hole into it. Definitely don't like how close those are, because the oil cooler gets pretty hot. I was concerned that it might have been grounding out there when it was doing the sputtering. I just heard it slightly in the sound of the motor going and then it started sputtering. So I mean, it might have been the fuel tank needed to be tilted. I mean, she ran great. I don't see much movement on here. Yeah, that's hot. No oil leaks. I had seen some residual oil here from when I changed the oil filter. No leaks from it. So I mean, everything worked out. Battery was getting charged during it. If you're going to be monitoring the break-in standing near it, which I recommend wearing hearing protection, especially once you bump it up from idle, because it does get pretty loud at 4,000 RPM and everything in between idle. I think idle's like 1,800 RPM. So I'll see if we lose any vacuum from the shutoff there. If we do, then I probably have an air leak somewhere, but who knows. I think I'll be alright with that filter. I mean, the fuel filter. It worked out for the 3 hours. So I let it cool longer than I wanted to. It's pretty much already safe to touch. But That's the benefits of having a drain hose. It's only going to be 2 quarts, so one of these gallon jugs is good enough. Just open the cap and let it drain, and then we'll swap out the filter, see if there's any metal shavings in here or sparkles. Phone's about to die, so probably won't record that part. So if you do get these drains hoses, I do actually recommend having them on the same side. This may be bolted down, it may not be in your situation, but if you tip it this way, it will help get more of the oil out. That's actually what's recommended for oil changes, although you may not be able to do it every time, especially if it's bolted down like mine will be. But like for right now, I can tilt it from this side. If I needed to, I could drain that, which I'm not going to need to. I'm kind of doing it periodically with that. Get the fuel filter drained out. And let's just take off the filter, do the oil change, and I think I'll call it a day for today. Alright, here we are another day. We're going to be putting on the backing plate with the carriage bolts. The carriage bolts that come with are 1/4 inch, so that does verify that these holes here are 1/4 inch if you want to use those to like secure the skid plate to your trailer. Just get some long enough to go through this. This is probably about 1 inch tall, and then just whatever the 1.5 inches of your boards. But just make sure you measure and verify. Now I've seen a couple of YouTube videos that talk about when they put on the pulley belt, which you can get cheaper elsewhere. I did get this from Russ just to make sure what pulley belt it is. D&D Power Drive V/3VX435. That's what's coming in the kit. That one you can get cheaper somewhere else. So what some people do is they'll put the pulleys on completely. They come with the bushing you put on, and then you put on the pulley, which are under there. And then what they do is that they loosen the motor. I'm assuming loosen this one, and then the other 3 they either take out, maybe just loosen that one since it's got room to slide. And they tilt the motor. When I had heard those methods, I thought there might have been a slightly easier way, which is put the bushing on, which are these black things here. The bigger one goes on the pump side. Put your bigger pulley on the pump, put the bushing, the smaller one, on your motor, and then put the belt on. Get your smaller pulley, put that in the belt, and push it out and in. And right now I kind of did a proof of concept. So the pulleys, the bushings weren't all the way in, the pulleys weren't all the way in, but it did work that I could squeeze it out and push it into the shaft bushing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and try that out. And I'm pretty sure that is the way that most of these belt drives are made, and not tilting the motor and working against the tension of the belt to get the motor back in place, because that seems pretty difficult. But we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. It's a 3/4 inch carriage bolts that go right here. The bolting goes through the inside of the skid plate, and then it's just a locking nut on the outside. No washers. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it out, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, watching Riz's video, because Entrepreneur Army got a different set of pulleys. It does look like I do need to go back a hole on this engine mount like I had thought when I had moved it back one, but then I thought, these weren't lining up, because if you look here, the shaft's just barely coming out, and the shaft's barely coming out over there, which would be perfect. But the pulley and bushing actually get mounted different on the engine. So I thought you put the bushing like this, which is how the like how the water pump is, but in fact it goes backwards. There's only one way these pulleys go on. They won't go on the other way because they're kind of tapered. So the final product is that it goes on this way, where the bushing is on the outside. I thought it was on the inside. So that means the pulley will go over the shaft and will line up with this one. So in fact it is the last bolt of those 3 bolt holes that the engine is mounted on, because push here, it's hitting the water pump, but then you have a huge gap, and you gotta, there's 4 bolts that hold this plate to the engine, and I know it's not gonna reach that far. So I'm gonna take this one off, which by the way, these 1/4 inch carriage bolts, the nut is a 7/16. So I'm gonna take this one off, and then I'm gonna move the engine back a bolt hole on all of them. Also, now that we know our final engine position, I'm gonna go ahead and put a thread locker on the threads of those bolts, so we don't have any vibration back out. Although these kind of nuts, I think they apply some pressure, because you can actually bolt those nuts on by hand most of the way without having to touch the other side of the bolt. But yeah, I'm gonna put some thread locker on there and move ourselves back 1 bolt. So we'll be in this hole here and that hole there. Alright, just to look from the front of our final bolt position. See, that one's going to be on the second one of the set of 3. That one's going to be in the last one there. That one's also going to be in the last one. And that one's going to be in the second set right there. So that should now have us flush when we put on the backing plate. So now we have our lined up bolt holes on the engine. It's flat against the motor, flat against the pump. So that should be it. Just to finish bolting her up. Alright, now we're bolted down. The only thing I would suggest is before you tighten the nuts or put on the nuts, try to make sure the whole engine is as far back as it can be. That's how I did it. That way it hits up against the bolt hole. It will be touching the front, being pushed back. And just make sure you do that without having the bolt tilt. That way you're as far seated back. And I think that would be the right way to do it, because it looks like we're flush here. And then here with the pump, we're about there on lineup. So like I said, that pulley is going to go backwards of what I thought it did. So it's actually going to seat a little over this, so it should line up once we get everything put on and together. Alright, before I tighten these up and it affect the way these bolts line up, these come from Russ. They got a locking washer. They're a 1/2 inch, and there's only 1 set of holes that line up with it. So you got your first one there, second one here, second one here, first one there. Or inside on the left, outside on the right. So we're gonna go ahead and put these in. get them pretty snug, and that should help us with these since there's a slot for adjustability. So we'll go ahead and get those in now. Alright, good to keep a little pick in handy. This one here had a little piece of broken off thread in there, I guess from the milling process, the threading process. So that kind of blocked it. Used the pick right there to get it out. So this one, hand tightened down all the way, hand tightened all. This one's still standing out. It's got a little bit of resistance, but I ran the pick in there all the way around and nothing else came out, so let's just say that one's gonna be a little hard. I mean, it'll probably be easy once the wrench is using it. Now another thing, this still kind of moves around a little bit, so just like a nitpicky thing, maybe you want to put a level to it. Putting a level on these sawhorses on unlevel ground. Try to do the best as I can. Maybe you're working on a level table, a relatively level table, and so maybe you want to level it, or maybe use, you know, I get 1/8 of an inch here and I want to make sure I get 1/8 of an inch there kind of method. But it'd probably be just purely aesthetic. I mean, this is close, but I don't think it touches the shaft at all. But it's just a thing to think about. Maybe you want to do, just get a level on it and then just tighten one or two of these, and then that should hold it for tightening down your carriage bolts. Alright, I almost forgot to bring out the thread locker for these, but I got them down. So for me, my relative level is having this pushed down and that tilted up, and that brings me there on the bubble. And then our skid plate is right about there, so that's level to itself. It's the same if I check the level on that side where the pump's at. So relative to the machine, it's level with itself. So now I'm gonna go get the 7/16 socket. So might have just enough space. Also gonna put some thread locker on that, even though they're nylon locking and, you know, washer locking. Still don't want it backing out, getting a free ride on the belts and the pulleys and who knows what. Russ sends a keyway, but the one he sent was a 3/16, so I don't know what that's for. This is a quarter, and it comes with its own, and that one's a quarter. It's a quarter key. Just so you know, I guess either he put the wrong size in there or accidentally put it in there or what. No, it's on the invoice, so maybe you put the wrong size. Alright, we got our carriage bolts bolted down. It is going to bend back some. Let me see if I can get an image of it. So all these holes in square keyways, I don't think you can see it. They all seem to be punched out. They're not drilled out. So on that square that's punched out for the carriage bolts, there's a little lip on top that sticks out, and so pretty much that's what the plate backs up into, and that's pretty much where you start getting your tighten moment for these carriage bolts. Let's see, I have we'll count this end one as a thread, so 1, 2, 3 threads sticking out. I'd say about 2.5 threads sticking out. 1, 2, 3. So 2 to 3 threads is what your tighten moment's going to be for these carriage bolts. And so now we're on to the pulleys. So just remember, these are 1/2 inch bolts. I don't remember their size. It's on the invoice, and I think they're maybe 5/16 on the threaded portion. 1/2 inch bolt, locking washer, 1/4 inch carriage bolt with the nut 7/16. Alright. Alright. This pulley's already kind of on there tight, so I'm probably gonna have to use a rubber mallet to push it back forward, but there's a set screw that goes in there. It's this one here in my hand. It is a 4mm Allen, but a close SAE to it is 5/32, which is what I actually used to back it out of there. But I think these would be too short. I think you're gonna have to use an Allen key, but 4mm, no play, so that's what it is. So we're gonna go ahead and get this pushed back, throw in some thread locker here, get our 4mm Allen, because it is a deep. You're talking about from here down to where the key is, so these lengths aren't gonna work, so you gotta use an Allen key. So 4mm for that. Okay, you can push it in by hand. I just put one hand on this side of the pump, the other hand on here. Now, the tricky part. This will go all the way up against this plate, up against those bolts, so the pump housing. So tricky thing is to get the right amount of spacing that you're not touching anything. It's gonna have to be subjective, honestly. Just gonna have to look and make sure it's not touching, and whatever that is, put the set screw. Alright, well, I got the set screw in there. The only thing is my Allen key hits up on this. So I tried pushing it back. And honestly, it's not gonna go in there straight, because this is at an angle, and I just realized this screw up here went MIA on me, so good luck in finding that. So I'm gonna go ahead and try the 4mm. What we got here? These are from Walmart. Hex socket bit set. See if that gets me good and tight. Like I said, subjective as to how much space, but as long as you see light throughout, that should be enough space for it. And if this vibrates and rubs up against it, I mean, not really anything you can do, because you got nothing to tighten it against the pump. That and the pump has to move, so oh well. I got it set with a mixture of I kind of started off with this, but I don't think you have to. Just starting off, reaching as far as I can with this, which you can still touch right now, and right there I'm kind of twerking it, but I don't know how deep within that screw it is, because you don't want it to barely be touching and then you round off the top end. So after a while I just pushed on the top of this plate, got it in, and then started turning, but right there it's already where I can't turn it. Like I said, like this I can touch that I'm in, but last thing I want to do is round off the end of it. It's gonna be good and set. Hopefully we have enough space. I can't quite get the camera in a good position because it's hitting the pump, but I do see light through the entire thing, just barely. Alright, this is kind of a good angle. So I don't have the pulley tightened on yet to the bushing, but you can see there's light throughout. Rotating the pump a lot easier like this with the pulley on than just doing it with the shaft. And we got clearance. There's space on the other side. So all we gotta do is put our screws in, which is gonna be these ends that aren't threaded on the pulley, because the threaded ends are what you use these screws to back the pulley out to take it off. So we'll go ahead and get that done. Alright, so like I said, it's going to go into the non-threaded hole on the pulley. These are to back the pulley out. We're going to go ahead and put our thread locker on these. These bolt heads are a 1/2 inch. Now I had to take it off because I didn't think about it beforehand. Be mindful when you're putting the pulley on that you match these holes locations with the threaded hole locations on the bushing. So you take it off. You got threaded hole there, non-threaded, which does nothing. It's probably drilled out for balancing. Threaded and threaded. So just to be mindful when you're putting the pulley on to align those holes as you're putting the pulley on. There's not really a marking that'll tell you you're in the right spot or not, so it's just visual. Okay, so I put thread locker on the first half of the bolts. When you tighten these, you want to make sure you're tightening them evenly. I had a thought that these had torque specs to them, and I put the paper to the side a little earlier. So on the pump pulley, this is considered an SK, and that's considered an SH. That's going to be the bushing designation. So on this paper here, it has our torque specs. Very windy today. We have SK, which is 5/16. I don't know if that's the size of the bolt or not. Probably is, because it's a 1/2 inch socket to drive them in. So we're talking 15 foot-pounds of torque. Open end or socket wrench. Let's see, open end socket wrench. 6 inches in length, about a 30-pound pull. Torque capacity inch pound 7. So I'm not sure about that end, but our torque for the pump pulley is going to be 15 foot-pounds. And then, like I said, our engine pulley is SH, so we're looking at 9 foot-pounds. So 15 for the pump, 9 for the engine. Alrighty, let's continue getting this on. So I got it on. It's as tight as I can get it. I tried using the torque wrench, but can't get it to break because it's very difficult to hold this down. I tried with the belt, squeezing it, pulling it, grabbing it, pushing this down a little bit. I mean, they're pretty dang tight. Plus I got the thread locker. I got nothing to stop it and hold it so that I can get an actual 15 foot-pounds of torque on it. So I'm gonna say we're good here. So now it's get the keyway in place, put the belt over the big pulley, put the small pulley through that, and then squeeze it on into the keyway, and I'll show you if I was successful in doing that instead of using the loosen the motor mount bolts, not having those bolts, or having these bolts on, twisting it, getting it on, and then pushing it back. So we'll see. Alright, right now I dropped the bushing on the ground, but it's pretty much what I'm gonna have it as. I'm gonna try to line up the keyway here to this one, push out, push this one in, and hopefully it'll work out. It's gonna take quite a bit of pushing. It's definitely gonna put strain on these sawhorses, but I think it should be able to be done. So we have the pushing on. It's not on the pulley yet. We got the keyway connected to both. So all it is just pushing that way and pushing in. There is a set screw here, and I'll let you know what size it is. It might be the same 4mm. Oh yeah, that was cake. I could probably do it one-handed right now. Yeah, no need to turn the motor. Look, I'm gonna push on the pulley, because now that the pulley's in, there's play in it. So you see we have the keyway, the bushing in place, shaft in place. So one-handed. Look at that. So all I gotta do is finish pushing it all in. Find the right spacing for this pulley to be straight, plumb, however you want to consider it, with the belt. And then taking out the set screw, putting some thread locker, and getting everything squared away. So since the Allen key will be free, I'll probably go ahead and screw in the pulley to the bushing. Remember, we're going to be using the non-threaded holes, and make sure they're aligned with the threaded holes on the pulley. And then I'll go ahead and set the set screw. It looks like that's about as far as the key will go in. I think this is as far as the bushing might go in. But yeah, we're just gonna make sure it's not touching any bolts or anything on this end. Make sure we're straight, so we don't have any pop-offs. But after this, it would just be tightening our bolt here, which I still need a washer. So I'll see if I have something. If not, maybe I'll go out to Lowe's for that. We'll see. Alright, with this one, it's going to be a 1/8 Allen for the set screw. Now, something I just realized with this one is that you know how I was fighting up this with the set screw? It would have been better if I had just turned it so I have free space over here. I think even just moving it with the bushing, I think it would be possible to move it with the bushing to get in this position. But I mean, that one's as tight as can be. But just so you all know, just turn it to this side of the plate. That way you have room to use the longer Allen keys. Remember, this one is tight with a 4mm. This one's a 1/8. It's got a little bit of play, but it's less play than the 3mm. So we'll go ahead and keep at it. Another thing, these Allen screws, they got a little bit of oil on them from the machining process, so just make sure you wipe it out. Use the nail, use a paper towel and your nail to get into the grooves, and just get out as much oil as you can. That way the thread locker works better. It looks like that's as far as the key's gonna stick out from the bushing being pushed all the way in. So we'll go ahead and put the set screw there, and then we'll put our bolts and get those bolt head measurements. Just to talk about the pulleys, took a little break to get some water. It's a hot day here in deep South Texas. Much cooler in the upper part of the state, I know, because my sister's going to school up there. So the pulleys that Russ gives you are ratioed for that water pump and a Honda GX 690. The only difference is that the Predator 670 has a 1-inch shaft, and the Honda GX 690 has an 1/8 shaft. So the bushing would be different, but everything else is the same. So the ratio on this is 2.06. You have a 6.9-inch pump pulley divided by the engine pulley, which is 3.35. That gives you rounded up 2.06 ratio. So this engine is rated up to 4,000 RPM, whereas the Honda is 3,600 RPM. So in order to get the full 1,750 RPMs out of the water pump, where it's rated at 8.5 gallons and 3500 psi. You have to put out at the engine 3605 RPMs. So this engine goes above that. The Honda's just under that. So the proper ratioing for this engine would be 2.29 if you round it up. So I could use the 6.9 inch pulley, but on this end I should have a 3.01 inch pulley. That way I can put this at top idle, which is the 4,000 RPM, and it'll put out 1750 to the pump. But if I had that 3 inch, having this at top idle, it would be 3 inch pulley is what they make. They don't make a 3.01. So with a 3 inch pulley and a 6.9 at 4,000 RPM, I would be just under by 11 RPM. So I'd be at a 1739 or 38, somewhere around there on the RPM. And with the Honda engine, since it maxes out at 3,000, with this pulley setup, it would only get 1748, which is only 2 away from its rated. Just a little bit of mumbling knowledge while I take a break. But yeah, if you can get a tachometer on this, 3,605 RPMs would put 1750 on that pump. And remember, these pumps actually have 2 ratings. 1750 is for the 8.5 gallon, and 1450 is for 7 gallons per minute. And I believe it still maintains that 3,500 psi. I don't remember off the top of my head the RPM needed. I think it's like around 2,900 in order to put 1450 on the pump to get the 7 gallons per minute. So we're gonna go ahead and continue. We already put our set screw with our thread locker. Now to get the bolts, put the thread locker and bring the pulley out some. I mean, as it looks right now, they look lined up, so I don't know how it's gonna be once this bushing pulls it out, unless I should back off the set screw. No, because the bushing would pull this. But it actually looks like the bushing's not all the way, or maybe it is all the way in. I don't know, we'll figure it out, and I'll let you know what I know. I know you guys aren't getting to see me actually working on it, but you're getting close-up and detailed information as compared to just having the camera at a distance and you watching me put stuff together. So it should be a little benefit the way I'm doing this video. Alright, so for the engine bushing and pulley bolts, I had to resort to using the micrometer because 11mm and 7/16 both look about the same. These are measuring out at 0.425 of an inch. 11mm is 0.433 and 7/16 is 0.4375. So technically 11mm is the smaller one. So we're going to go ahead and use the 11mm on these bolts. There's still a little play, but it's going to be less than the 7/16. So we'll go ahead and put thread locker on the first half of those bolts and get them in. I don't know if I mentioned in the last clip, but I'm going to go ahead and back out the bushing set screw, because I believe right now either the belt or the pulley, the way it is preventing the bushing from going all the way in. So I think there is more room for it to go in. So I'll go ahead and bolt on the bushing to the pulley, and then we'll go ahead and make sure our whole pulley setup there is pushed in straight with our pump pulley, and our key is as far in as it needs to be and we'll just make sure it's set right, and then we'll go ahead and put the set screw at the end. So I didn't like quite how it was tightening. I feel like it was just slightly off a line, so I went ahead and put the screws in these threaded portions, and then just slowly backed out the pulley in somewhere. So I backed off the pulley so I could get it realigned. So just so you know how it works: threaded to take it off, non-threaded to secure it on. And it's tapered, remember, so as you're tightening this on, bringing the pulley in, it's tightening the bushing to the shaft as well. But I'm making sure this time, remember, non-threaded to threaded on the pulley, is that screw it in some, make sure there's plenty of play all around. There's not one screw that's hitting against the bushing on either side. And yeah, just go hand tighten. And the thing about it is the pulley, I mean, I don't want to pull the bushing out, but it may not be even the way it is right there. So you may have to eyeball it by either screw thread or measuring other means to see and make sure that you're trying to tighten these bolts as evenly as possible. They kind of stopped on me, and I don't know if that's because they're painted on the inside of the thread holes, but we're gonna try again, try to get this going as even as possible, and hopefully it works out this time. This hole for me was kind of a little this way, so it was hitting up a little bit on the bushing, so that's the whole reason why I backed it out. Tried again. I'm making sure that this is as far in as possible. It does look like it still lines up. Let's see. Try to get a measurement here. From the end of the shaft to the bushing, we're at about 0.959, so almost an inch from the end. So once again, that is 0.959. Alright, so right now I haven't attempted to twerk it down, but there is a gap. I'm assuming it's not meant to touch all the way. Like I said, it's tapered, so it's squeezing down on the bushing as it goes. I wouldn't doubt I'm already near those 9 pounds of torque. So you can see I was able to move the bushing in some because this is where the set screw was before. So let's see. We have the keyway is 0.47. Let's see, 478. No, 0.481. 0.481 is the distance from the end of the key to the end of the shaft. We almost got that same distance here. We got 0.468 from the end of the bushing to the end of the key. Now I didn't first try this onto the shaft, so I really don't know what's the furthest this can go in. I would say try that out first if you can, before putting the pulley in the belt, to see where its maximum in would be. Same thing with the key. If I would have thought about that beforehand, I would have marked it with something, a Sharpie pencil. So that should be it. I'm gonna try twerking it. I still need to set the set screw here. I'll do that after attempting to torque it, but torquing doesn't seem to be doing it with the ability of this engine to move, and me not being able to prevent this from rotating. And then it would just be making sure that these are aligned, adding tension, and then tightening down the bolts that mount the pump to the skid plate. Once I feel that these are in fact in line and straight, and that way we don't get any movement. And then just closing it up, still need to find where that screw ran off to, because I know when I picked this up earlier to bring it out here, the screw was on there. So we'll see. No, I haven't finished twerking yet. It's still bringing it out, but one thing I am noticing, and hopefully twerking it will bring it out further, but the motor mount bolt right here, it's touching on this one, and I'm pretty sure adding tension, it may bring it down and it might touch. So if torquing this down, if it doesn't bring it out enough, I may have to undo it and bring out the bushing some, so that there's enough space from that bolt right there, because it is touching right there. Like this, it's not quite touching, but still we want to make sure our belt's not rubbing up on the bolt on this side. And I don't know about torquing these things down, man. Every time I get one that's a little looser, I'm like, oh, the bolt snapped, but sure enough, that's not it. I'm almost near the point where I don't want to tighten it any further, just out of experience of snapping bolts sometimes. I may end up just choosing to elect to take that bolt out. It's not going to make much of a difference if it's not in there anyways. The bottom one's out of the way. Of course, once it's tensioned, we'll see. I'd imagine tension's like that, but you see how it may touch this one. So keep trying a little more, and we'll see how things go. Good thing is that I know what size these are. They're grade 5. So if something happens, hopefully it happens on the bolt side and not on the thread side of the pulley. If not, it's going to be a 2-bolt pulley. But yeah, this is definitely easier to torque down than the bigger one, because you get more of a grip on it. But yeah, we'll keep going. So I tightened those as much as I could. Still couldn't get the torque wrench to click. I even tried lowering it to 7 pounds, since there is thread lock on there. It's kind of a lubricant. They say you got to go 20% lower. Still couldn't get it click, but I mean, I got it tight enough to where I couldn't hold it anymore and it would rotate. So I'm gonna assume that's the most I can do. And still, this bolt over here is in the way. When I pull down on this to simulate tension, it's still touching, and so I'm just gonna have to end up taking it off so that the belt doesn't rub and then tear and then wear. And I mean, it's gonna be the same for all of them. As far as lineup, I mean, as it is, they seem pretty straight right there. Now I don't know if that's the same distance, you know. And then because this back plate it came bent from shipping, it's a little hard to truly gauge, you know, if there's the same distance. But I mean, I got no light coming through that pulley, no light coming through the top of the pump pulley, so that might be already straight as it is. It's just a matter of tensioning it to a good amount. But yeah, see how it kind of catches. So if you don't have a torque wrench, don't worry. You're probably not going to be able to hold this in place so it doesn't rotate and get the actual torque value on it. I got to set my set screw, and then just put tension, and then I can cover this up. Screw for this is still MIA. Gotta retrace my steps from over there back over here. Kind of did that right now when I came back, but still MIA. I actually thought this was gonna hit up on the drain hose, but apparently there's a gap there, which is good, because I was also worried having to move it back that little bit. But that's plenty of room. Shouldn't have a problem with the oil changes, even with the belt cover. Probably just comes out right here. So we're almost done putting this together. I'm gonna hold off on showing how to mount the unloader and your water inlet, because from Russ's suggestion, which he didn't say he had them, so I sourced it elsewhere, but he recommended, because I got an upgraded unloader, which is the YU21405 from General Pump. He said it's too heavy to have it mounted on here. I guess it can create damage for the pump head. So we're gonna remotely put that. I'm gonna have a 3/8 BSP to 3/8 MPT, and then a 3/8 MPT to a 1/2 inch adapters, and then I'm gonna have a 1/2 inch hose that's gonna go to another General Pump, their steel 1/2 inch MPT unloader block. And I don't know if I'll mount it here or somewhere else on the trailer. Still debating on it. Still trying to figure out how I'm gonna mount this, because that will also change whether I'm using these holes or these holes in the back and put these over here. Of course, one of these top ones is gonna have that temperature pressure relief. So that's gonna be for another video. It's not gonna be a part of this setup. And pretty much once I'm done here, I'm gonna work on the trailer and try to figure out its layout, and then based off of that, I can finish up adding the hose and then the barb. I could actually just add the barb, but also, like I said, it just depends which side I'm gonna use, how it's set up. I have a 3/4 BSP to 3/4 MPT adapter, and then I have a 3/4 MPT to 1.5 inch barb that's gonna feed from the IBC tote, the 275 over there. So let's get this finished up. Alright, I know I was missing it earlier. Just wanted to take this out so I can measure it for y'all, just in case you ever needed to buy another one. It doesn't really have a grade rating, 307 alpha. JH is the manufacturer. It's a 6 inch 3/8 bolt, I believe. The thread is 3/8-16, and then by 6 inches. And that's going to be to tension your pump, or your belt, really. I went ahead and tightened up my Allen key there, the set screw. So we're ready to go ahead and add tension, and then we'll just double check with the cover over there. Make sure we're still straight here on the pulley, because I mean that's not really going to change. This one's got 4 points of changing. I just saw another video that pretty much once you get this the German good and tight, you know, that you're supposed to go ahead and tighten up the 4 bolts to keep it in place, not only just having the tension on this. Alright, so let me go ahead and do that. Alright, so now that's how the bolt's actually supposed to be on the other side. One of the ears broke off, but it should still work. Alright, I learned a lesson here. I put that I forget what it's called, that nut backwards. So I put it in on that other side. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen it up and put it on this side, as I have now learned it should be. So I'm gonna add on the title and the description. Make sure you watch this video before you build, so you learn from all the mistakes instead of building along with me. I'd rather you watch it and see it a few times. Alrighty. Alright, went ahead and tightened it. Grabbed the wrench from here, so I'm not putting a lot of torque into it, but it's pretty much to the point that I can't pull it anymore or tighten it. And so what I saw online was you don't want more than half an inch of play, so just find you a spot, like for me right there, that's reading 3.5. I'm not gonna be able to show you, but let's see, 3.5, and I'm just, I believe it's a 1/16 under, 2/16 under, touching half an inch. So where that 4-inch mark is, 2 below, that's right about where my tension is. Let's see, let me get it back to the, okay, 3.5. It's about 1/16 from touching the 4-inch mark from the 3.5, so that should be our right tension. Plus, like I said, you probably could get more if you're holding the wrench back here, but I'm holding it up here, so I have a little better gauge of how much torque I'm putting on it. See how we're facing. We're still good and straight. So then I'll go ahead and tighten those 4 mounting bolts, and we're good to close this one up for today and for now. Then I get to work on the trailer. So I'm not sure how I'm gonna get exactly to those back 2 screws and nuts to tighten them, but look what I found. There's my little set screw for that. So I'm glad I didn't have to go run a magnet all over. But yeah, I got these tightened up. Actually, I wanted to show you. Here you go, tape measure. Remember, I make those minimum and maximum markings. So let's see. We're at about, let me try it over here, maybe a little easier. So here we are at, well, I guess that's hard to, let's start from the inch. So from the inch we're about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16. Yeah, 4, 5/16. So 1/16 more than a 1/4 inch. That's how much we moved to tension this. Let's see if this kind of lines up. Let me see it. Oops, let's bring it back away. Let's move you a little so I can see. Well, it kind of looks like a 1/4. Looks like it could be a 5/16. So it's about a 1/4 5/16 that you're going to be moving. So I may go ahead and make that mark, get the square, and make the line across. Phone's about to die, so it's probably the last video for today. Before the phone dies, I gotta tell you, I hope this belt never busts. It's gonna be a pain taking it off the trailer, getting it on here, and redoing what I have to do. I mean, it's a little process, but yeah. This will probably be my last and final pressure washer build, because I'll be more than happy to be able to buy the ones in the future already built. Definitely probably go gear drive next time. But yeah, it's got one more bolt to tighten up using the adjustable wrench and the 9/16. Just need to get that last bolt. Make sure you take that bolt off before you tension it. I really don't want to have to untension it, so try my best. I already got it loose, I just need to get it out. Alright, got all the bolts tightened, got that adjustable one almost stuck, but went ahead and made my mark, which doesn't look straight, so the pump might be a little crooked, but that's our minimum, or the furthest in. This is our belt tension. This is the furthest out. The same over here. This one does actually look straight. Minimum, the most I can bring it in, belt tension, most I can bring the pump out. So just got to remove that bolt, get a magnetic telescopic magnet, get our screw and put our cover on. See if I can make it before the phone dies. But yeah, like that, we're complete building this pressure washer. Add on the other stuff later, but that's the easy stuff. The building it is harder. Rush through in 2 of these little rubber pieces. I think it's to stop vibration. I put one on the bottom of this, one on the top, just to help with any rattling. I thought it belonged to something else, but that's what it was meant for. So yeah, we're all done finally. See you later.